Coming up on Tech News Weekly, we have got a fantastic show ahead for you. First, we talk with Harry McCracken from Fast Company about Facebook joining all of the messaging services together. It is the messagification of Facebook, Instagram, and so much more. Afterwards, we have David Ruddock back on from Android Police. He is here to talk to us about Google's event, the Pixel 5, and what he thinks about all of those products and why 5G ain't that great. Before we round things out with finding joy on social media through TikTok and the actual realism of TikTok with Abrar Al-Heeti of CNET. All that plus so much more on Tech News Weekly. Tech News Weekly is brought to you from TWiT's LastPass Studios. You're focused on security, but are your employees? Well, LastPass can ensure that they are by making access and authentication seamless, whether employees are working in the office or remotely. Visit lastpass.com/twit to learn more.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is TWiT.
This is Tech News Weekly, episode 153, recorded Thursday, October 1st, 2020. This episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Barracuda. Did you know that 91% of all cyber attacks start with an email? To uncover the threats hiding in your Office 365 account, get a secure and free email threat scan at barracuda.com/TNW.
And by ZipRecruiter, hiring is challenging, especially with everything else you have to consider today. But there's one place where hiring is simple, it's fast, and smart. That place is ZipRecruiter. Try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/TNW. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
And by CashFly, give your users the seamless online experience they want. Power your site or app with CashFly CDN and be 30% faster than the competition. Learn more at twit.cashfly.com.
Hello and welcome to Tech News Weekly, the show where every week we talk to and about the people making and breaking the tech news. I am Mikah Sargent.
And I'm Jason Howell. Mikah, good to see you.
Oh, good to see you too, sir. How are you?
I'm doing well, though. You have a new audio interface that I'm very jealous of, the UAD audio interface, and that's why your voice just sounds so crystal clear.
So clean, crisp, and beautiful. Thank you. Well, let's get things rolling along. There was just a little bit of a news story about Messenger and Instagram. Messenger and Instagram and Facebook and WhatsApp and all of these different apps that are blah, blah, blah by Facebook apps kind of merging together. And for a long time now, I've been able to go on my Facebook account and see the direct messages that I've gotten via Instagram on Facebook. And that was a little weird, a little confusing, but it was clear to me that there was a change. And it turns out that this change has kind of been warned for a long time. I'm excited to say that we have Harry McCracken here today from Fast Company to talk to us about the great mergification of Facebook apps. Welcome back to the show, Harry.
Hey, folks. How's it going?
Going well. So let's start with that writings on the wall. In fact, you call it a manifesto, to be frank, that kind of kicked this off. So what was the first thing that kind of let us know that there would be at some point a great mergification of these messaging apps?
Well, back in March of last year, Mark Zuckerberg posted this 3,000-word document on Facebook talking about how the future was going to be more private, more centered around messaging, more ephemeral, and also about the various parts of the Facebook portfolio being able to talk to each other in a way they hadn't. For quite a while, Facebook had actually done quite well by acquiring Instagram and WhatsApp and leaving the people who founded them to run them in a fairly standalone way. And it was moving towards an era where that was much less true. And the company was creating like a network of networks based on these several large properties it had. And then for quite a while, there was no news on that. And we're just starting to see some of the fruits of that, such as this new Instagram Messenger integration.
Yeah, so that's what's kind of interesting. I mean, do we know, was that alert just an early alert, so to speak? And then the play out is happening as we expected it? Or do we think that maybe the pandemic or something like that kind of got in the way of things happening sooner? Basically, I'm curious if you know, or if you feel like this is business as usual. This was always kind of going to be around the time when these mergings started to happen, or if Zuckerberg saying that back in March of 2019 was supposed to push forth changes a lot quicker than we actually saw. Because, yeah, as you said, that was almost 19 months ago, right. Which seems like it's been a while.
They've been testing some bits and pieces of this for a while. Some people have seen this Messenger, Instagram integration already, although this week it's rolling out in a few countries, and it's officially coming to the rest of the world later this year. Essentially, I think they always knew it was going to take quite a while, and then there are parts of it they have not implemented at all. He also said that Messenger and Instagram messaging would have end-to-end encryption like WhatsApp has had for several years, and that they're saying don't expect that anytime soon. It's really complicated to take an existing very large messaging platform and add encryption after the fact. So there's one part of it that's a little bit related that they actually rolled out a little more quickly because of the pandemic. They have this feature called Messenger Rooms, which is sort of their answer to Zoom, and that's available across all of the products in their portfolio. And that rolled out in the spring. They had originally planned to roll it out later this year. And when it became clear that people at home kind of wanted good video conferencing capability, they got Rooms pushed out more quickly than they expected.
So you mentioned about the mixture of encrypted and unencrypted communication, which seems like potentially a pretty messy deal. And people feel pretty strongly, if they're aware of encryption, people feel pretty strongly often that their communication stays encrypted. Like, any indication as far as like how this mess is going to be managed? Like, is it going to be the kind of thing where, okay, great, we've merged these things and you used to have encrypted communication here, now you don't until we figure out how to integrate? Or maybe it's the opposite. Now you do until we figure out how to give you unencrypted. I doubt it's that way. But like, any indication as far as how they deal with that mess?
Yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that they will want to undo the encryption that WhatsApp has, just because that's such a major selling proposition, and also a sign that in some cases Facebook actually can do privacy really well.
Right.
But you can't be a little bit end-to-end encrypted. Either you are or you aren't. So at some point, if they're going to deliver on what Mark Zuckerberg said they would, they have to flip a switch, and Instagram and Messenger need to be end-to-end encrypted in a way they have not been up until now. And they also have to figure out how this kind of impacts their business model, given that Facebook, generally speaking, makes money by kind of knowing what you're doing. And while it's still certainly possible with an app that has end-to-end encryption for Facebook to have some understanding of what you're doing in a way that helps them target you, they can't scan the messages. If it's end-to-end encrypted, even Facebook can't see what you're doing.
So I guess I'm just curious about this move from the standpoint of the user. Certainly there's some sense to the idea that things get a little bit easier if every single user, or if the company has access kind of to all of these apps, but does not have access to But the user, on the other hand, rather, what is the benefit here for the average Facebook user or Instagram user? Is this really just a business decision and is less about user experience, or what's going on?
Well, there are several ways into answering that question. There are certainly people like watchdogs and legislators who are concerned about Facebook starting to merge these experiences more, because it's happening at the same time that there are people out there who say that maybe Facebook is a monopoly and it should be forced to split things further apart. But I think if you look at what Mark Zuckerberg wrote, I think some of the obvious reasons why you might want to do that are in there. The kind of the public space of your Facebook feed is really mature and not probably a source of immense growth in the years to come. But you can see that private messaging is super popular. It's not illogical that Facebook might see that as an area for a lot more growth than its traditional public space. And by starting to make connections between these services, it helps grow that. I should also say that when they announced this connection between Instagram and Messenger, they did not kind of assume that that was a killer app for people in itself. They're also launching a bunch of features, just like custom emoji reactions and selfie stickers, and kind of the meat and potatoes of stuff that people like in messaging. And that's also part of this update to make it interesting to you if you don't care about the talking to people on Messenger.
Yeah, I think what strikes me right now is, we've got all this kind of attention, or we've had all this attention to, kind of antitrust questions around antitrust, and, these large companies like Facebook, Google, and everything having so much control and so much within, interconnectivity between their own internal services and apps that it makes it more difficult or kind of shuts out the third party services or others that might want to compete. And like I've seen Google do this as well. It's like in this time of scrutiny, they still kind of double down and say, yeah, but you know what? We're combining anyways. It's really hard to turn around that ship, right? When you're already, when you're a company as massive as Facebook, as massive as Google, to recognize that maybe now is not the right time for something like this? Or do you think that even plays into the equation at this point? Facebook's just like, this is just how we run our business, how we choose to run our business. Let the chips fall where they may.
And I did ask them about that, whether they had a secret plan to do this to make themselves hard to break up. And basically their answer is that from the moment they acquired Instagram and WhatsApp, on the back end, they were doing a lot of integration. They moved those over to their Facebook data centers. Instagram as an advertising platform has always been built on the Facebook ad platform. They're totally intermingled. And so Facebook's case is, well, we intermingled everything years ago. It's just that these new things we're doing are a little bit more visible to people. But it certainly is true. They're not talking about letting you talk, Instagram users talk to people on Snapchat or a Google service. It's very much about a larger walled garden built out of the walled gardens that Facebook has had for years.
Harry McCracken, I want to thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate you being here. If folks want to follow you online and check out the great work you're doing, where do they go to do that?
Fastcompany.com is a great place to go, or I'm also Harry McCracken on Twitter, and I'll tweet it all out.
Awesome. Thanks so much. We appreciate it.
Thank you,
appreciate
folks.
Your time, Harry. Thank you. Take care, man. All right, up next, we're going to talk a little bit about Google's hardware event that happened. Gosh, I lose track of days, but that happened, I think, yesterday. I can't believe I'm thinking about this. Yes, it was yesterday. Time is weird. Pixel
weird.
5 and a whole bunch of other pieces of hardware that Google announced that we already knew everything about. Anyways, we're going to talk with David Ruddock from Android Police about that. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by Barracuda. Barracuda is the provider of cloud-enabled enterprise-grade security solutions that protect email, networks, data, applications. Suddenly you have dozens, hundreds, thousands even employees working remotely. And each one of them is getting a ton of emails every day. And each one of those emails makes them vulnerable. 91% of all cyber attacks start in an email. So spear phishing, ransomware, account takeover, conversation hijacking. And then you take all those numbers, you multiply them by how many employees you have times how many emails, and it's easy to see that one click on the wrong email just simply costs you money. It costs you customers, it costs you your reputation. Well, Barracuda researchers have seen a steady increase in the number of coronavirus-related spear phishing attacks since January. They've observed a recent spike of 667% in this type of attack since the end of February. So you can get the protection that you need for your company with Barracuda Total Email Protection. It includes all-in-one email security, backup, and archiving, AI-based protection from spear phishing, account takeover, and business email compromise. Has an automated incident response that gives you options to quickly and efficiently address attacks. Security awareness training, so you can educate your workforce so your employees can be the first line of defense against attacks. And right now, there are new attacks impersonating organizations like the World Health Organization. Attackers are actually utilizing domain spoofing and promising information that's related to the coronavirus. And this is all in an attempt to trick users into a phishing scam. So you want to ensure the safety and security of your business by using Barracuda. To uncover the threats hiding in your inbox, get a secure, free email threat scan of your Office 365 account risk-free at barracuda.com/TNW. That's barracuda.com/TNW. Barracuda, your journey secured. And we thank Barracuda for their support of this show and the TWiT network. All right. Google, like I said, Google held its fall hardware event yesterday morning. And let's just say there were zero surprises. We literally, save for a couple of very small details, we knew everything in and of itself, which in and of itself is no surprise because Google's very bad at holding surprises. Joining us to share his take on the hardware announcements, talk a little bit about the Pixel 5 and more is David Ruddock from Android Police. Welcome back to the show, David.
Hey, Jason.
Good to see you, man. So we got to start with the flagship, and I'll go ahead and throw that in air quotes because when you're talking about flagships, usually you're talking about like super premium, like top of the line, which is not to say that the Pixel 5 is a bad phone. I'm very interested. I've ordered it already, but it's like a flagship, but not like a premium flagship. Are you excited with what Google showed off here? Do you think Google's smart and kind of going in a different direction with their top of the line? What are your thoughts?
I think that we had a good idea. This is what they were going to do. I think that there are reasons they did it. And I think those reasons may not be readily apparent to, everyday consumers who are looking at this and saying, I want a Google phone and I want it to be the best phone it could possibly be. And, those fans are obviously maybe a little miffed. Overall, though, I feel like sentiment is cautiously optimistic about this phone so far in terms of the features and in terms of what they had to get rid of and what they've added. Granted, they haven't added much, but I think that the strategy makes sense from Google's point of view in terms of sales. That's what Google's end goal here is. They've made it very clear they want to run a hardware business. This isn't a hobby for them anymore. And so the way they're trying to do that is by getting in more carriers. So the Pixel 5 will be sold on Verizon, will be sold on AT&T. It won't be sold on T-Mobile, but between Verizon and AT&T, you've got, the majority of wireless subscribers in America, and it will be sold at a price that is substantially lower than fare from Samsung and Apple, at least in terms of their top-of-the-line phones. That said, there is definitely going to be some competition for this phone, and I think that we'll see more phones kind of enter the arena at this price range. As far as what Google's done that's unique, I think that what consumers are still going to see is a great camera experience, unblemished software. There's no unwanted advertising or things like that on it. It gets updated very quickly. It's secure. It's simple. And I think that still is mostly Google's core marketing message and has been throughout the entirety of the Pixel being a thing. But I don't know that necessarily shakes things up enough. I'm not sure I see a huge avenue for success here that Google previously hasn't tried to explore. And I think that by coming down at the premium tier, Google is doing something new, sure, but I think their biggest success has been at the sub-premium tier with the A series of phones. And those just seem more interesting. The Pixel 5 looks fine, but if if somebody's asking me which Pixel phone should I get, I'd be like, well, if money is at all a concern, the 4A and 4A 5G look pretty good.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree. The 4A was really impressive. My wife ended up picking it up, and she was just telling me last night. She was like, "I love this phone. I'm so happy." She had moved over to the OnePlus 8 for a while, and she couldn't stand it. She's like, "Oh, it feels good to be back on a Pixel again." She wouldn't even know. She doesn't really care whether it's the top of the line. She just likes Google's approach on software and hardware, and that ends up working for her. And I enjoyed it as well. Now, what they got rid of in the 5, some of the things that they got rid of: no more Soli, so the radar up top, which no surprise there. It was kind of a feature that kind of, was a little bit of an eye roll feature to begin with. Sounds like maybe no more Pixel neural core. Did they build that into the device in a different way, or is that just gone altogether? I felt like that was kind of a strange omission.
So it is gone. We did confirm that with them. And the reason it's gone, I suspect, is cost. That's definitely just something more silicon, more money, and more complexity. The other reason is I think that maybe Google was trying something with this neural core, and it turned out that the way the industry was moving anyway, and the way it has been moving, is it putting incredibly advanced DSPs with digital signal processors, which are what power most of the AI on your phone in smartphone chips anyway. Qualcomm's been doubling or quadrupling their AI performance with basically every generation of chip. And I think that maybe Google tried to get out in front of that in a way that probably didn't end up making sense. They've brought the next generation assistant to Pixel 4a, which uses a, pretty, standard middle of the road chipset. And that brings things like, on-device voice processing that's near instantaneous. So I think that the neural core probably was only necessary for a few things Google maybe aspirationally wanted to do, perhaps with the camera. And at this point, though, the DSPs and the ISPs, the image signal processors for the camera on these chips, like I said, they're so advanced and there's so much investment in making them more advanced with each passing year. I don't think that extra hardware, unless Google, can really build a compelling story around why it needs that, was probably necessary anymore in any strict sense.
Yeah. All right. That makes a lot more sense. Now, you actually wrote about yesterday the inclusion of millimeter wave 5G in the Pixel 5. You were calling it a mistake. Boom, dropping the hammer on 5G. Why do you say that?
Yowza.
Yeah, I think it's a boneheaded move. Just straight up. I think Google was told by carriers, and this is what I asked them about this. I said, hey, so what's the deal? We know millimeter wave 5G is a new, very limited and very expensive technology to put in something the size of a smartphone. And so I've talked to people in the industry before, analysts who say, the cost of implementing millimeter wave in a phone can be, $60, $80, $100, and just in parts. So it's not insubstantial. And so when I asked Google about this, they said, well, all of our carrier partners really told us they wanted more phones with millimeter wave in them. And I don't think that's untrue. I think that the degree to which it's true is really hazy. I think Verizon, of course, wants it because they only have millimeter wave 5G. That's their only 5G technology right now. But AT&T and T-Mobile have very limited millimeter wave networks. AT&T's is targeted squarely at its corporate customers, and they've been very clear about that from day one. AT&T is all about business millimeter wave. They want to target areas, geographic areas, where they know they have corporate customers who want this technology. T-Mobile says millimeter wave is part of their layer cake strategy. They have deployments in Los Angeles and New York. But T-Mobile's really just kind of dipped their toe and is looking what the technology can do. T-Mobile's far more invested in its mid-band 5G, which Pixel 5 supports, and is honestly way faster than most people need already on their smartphones. And so that really begs the question, aside from Verizon, where, Verizon has its own model of the Pixel 5 that it will sell. It's not any different. It's just got a locked bootloader. But why did Google decide that the unlocked version of the Pixel 5 in America needs millimeter wave when every other country on Earth where the Pixel 5 will be sold, no models will have millimeter wave? And the answer we're getting so far is basically Google felt pressured by carriers. And that to me is just so backward. And it's already resulted in price disparities. In Canada, the phone is $100 cheaper after conversion for the Pixel 5 than it is in America. And I guarantee that's millimeter wave. And this is an experience that nobody's going to get any value from. The millimeter wave coverage in the entire United States is negligible. If you were to put it on a coverage map, you couldn't see it. It fundamentally doesn't exist. So outside, certain testing environments where people deliberately go and look for this coverage, they're not going to get it. There's no sign that's going to change in the next 2 or 3 years in a big way either. And so Google threw money into this phone that it really didn't need to and made it more expensive. And I just think that's silly.
I agree. That's really interesting to hear the cost difference as well. And it's not just a cost difference between countries. The US and Canada are actually going to be receiving this device later than other countries. Usually it's the opposite, right? Now we're on the other side. So maybe it's, getting a taste of our own medicine or whatever, but we get it at the end of October. Other countries are getting it mid-October. Does that have a role to play? Like, does the millimeter, like that seems to be one of the, differentiators potentially between the devices that we're getting and the devices that everyone else is getting. Could that be a factor in that delay?
Oh, it's absolutely a factor. You're totally right. I don't think millimeter wave has delayed the phone. I think the issue is Google's supply chain for the US was disrupted in a way where the global supply chain wasn't as disrupted. And that's kind of sad to me because Google is the only major smartphone manufacturer, and I say major in air quotes, that is still having these supply chain issues. Why can they not execute on this? The Pixel 4a was delayed by like months It was ridiculous. Samsung has launched everything it planned to on time. Granted, Korea's had a lot easier time with COVID because they've done a great job managing it. But, Apple, it doesn't sound like we'll have any major delays. They'll be delayed by a few weeks. And I imagine there will be no supply issues for them. There will be plenty of iPhones. And basically every other smartphone manufacturer seems to be operating business as usual at this point. LG, Motorola, all of them seem to be doing okay. But Google is really struggling. The Chromecast with Google TV sold out day one on the Google Store. And it's a simple little TV dongle. How could they not make enough of them? And I think that kind of speaks to Google's lack of experience in being a product manufacturer still. They're still relatively new at this, and the growing pains have become much more clear with stress that COVID has put on, the company.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Chromecast with Google TV, not Android TV. Still trying to figure out what the difference is there. I guess we're moving to Google TV now. One thing that struck me about that is Stadia. Stadia is Google's cloud gaming system or service, rather. The Chromecast Ultra was shipped with a certain packaging of the Stadia game system or whatever, with the controller and everything. So it was compatible. But now the Chromecast Ultra is not for sale anymore because we have this new Chromecast with Google TV device. But it is not compatible until the middle of next year. And I read that news and it just kind of infuriated me. It seemed like yet another example of Google not taking its efforts seriously. It just makes it kind of seem like Google doesn't care about Stadia in this regard. And, the people who were worried once Google rolled out Stadia about oh, yeah, we'll give it 2 years and it's going to, be on the Killed by Google website. Maybe there's some truth to that. I feel like Google should have come out of the gate supporting this thing right away with the replacement device when the other device already did. What are your thoughts on that?
I think that there's no excuse for what happened here. Google really screwed up on this. And I'm sure that somewhere at some layer of Google, there's a good reason for this, and not say it's an excusable reason, but a good technical reason, as in we just can't make this work right now. And I'm sure that's, once again, related to, the difficulties of work from home, especially when it comes to hardware. That said, the whole point of Stadia is that to decentralize the gaming experience, and the fact that you're launching this product without compatibility is absurd. That to me is totally nuts that they couldn't achieve that. When I saw that, I was like, there's no way that's true. When Ryan, when he's reviewing, he's like, yeah, they said they won't have Stadia at launch and won't for a while. And it's just like, are they serious? That was incredibly hard to believe. But I would really, they need to say more about this. There needs to be more public discussion of what's going on there. And I think that Google needs to feel a little pressure on that issue.
Yeah, agreed. There were a few more hardware devices. Just kind of wrapping up, final thoughts. Did anything else kind of excite you? Are you looking forward to the new Google? I want to call it Google Home, the Nest Audio. What do you think there?
Couldn't care less about it. It's honestly, it's a nice visual update. I think it looks very good. I love what the home team does with hardware. I think their stuff all looks really cool. And it totally gels with the new branding. And I hope we get a new version of the Max and Mini speakers that also look like this to, better fit in. I love that their hardware aesthetic on these speakers has been basically, it should look like an itty bitty piece of furniture in your home, which I think is, it helps it fit in and it helps it, look aesthetically pleasing. Overall, what I came away most excited about is the product that we're going to have to wait the longest to get, which is the 4A 5G. I'll be reviewing the Pixel 5 for Android Police. I won't be doing the 4A 5G, but I think the 4A 5G blends everything good about the Pixel 4A and the Pixel 5, and compromises in ways that are so totally acceptable to me. I don't need wireless charging. I don't need an IP rating. I'll live without them. But it gets a good chipset. It gets good 5G. It doesn't have millimeter wave, but that's useless anyway. Nobody cares, except for the Verizon version, which is $100 more. Everybody should note. And I think that's the product that Google is going to have. I think, barring any weird issues, barring any kinds of problems, on paper, that to me is the perfect mid-range Pixel phone. It steps up from the 4A in the right ways, and it steps down from the 5 in the right ways too. Not to say I think the 5 will be bad. I just think the 5 is a little much money for what it is, and we'll see after I use it. But I think the 4A 5G to me was the star.
All right. Well, we won't have to wait too long anyways to see these devices. And David Ruddock from Android Police, always a pleasure getting you on the show, man. Thank you so much. If people want to follow you online, where can they do so?
They can go on Twitter and follow me at RDRV3 at their own risk.
Right on, David. Thank you so much. We appreciate talking with you. We'll talk to you soon.
Thanks for having me on.
All right. Take care.
Up next, can we find joy on social media? Maybe with TikTok. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by ZipRecruiter. There's a lot to think about these days as an employer, and hiring can be challenging, especially when you have to think about enforcing social distancing and supplying masks. Monica Starks could relate. She needed to hire for a pivotal role at her construction company, GS Group, but was having a tough time finding the right person with so many candidates out there. So she switched to ZipRecruiter because they make hiring easy. ZipRecruiter's technology identifies people with the right experience for your job and actively invites them to apply, which is why you should try ZipRecruiter for free at ziprecruiter.com/TNW. That's how Monica found Lamont Jenkins. She said that ZipRecruiter sent Lamont's profile to her around 5 minutes after she posted her job because he was a great match for the role. ZipRecruiter is so effective that 4 out of 5 employees who post on ZipRecruiter get a qualified candidate within the first day. ZipRecruiter sends your job to over 100 of the web's leading job sites. But they don't stop there. With their powerful matching technology, ZipRecruiter scans thousands of resumes to find people with the right experience and invites them to apply to your job. ZipRecruiter makes the entire hiring process efficient and effective with features like screening questions to filter candidates and an all-in-one dashboard where you can review and rate your candidates. See for yourself. Try ZipRecruiter for free. Yes, that's right. Free at ziprecruiter.com/TNW. That's ziprecruiter.com/TNW. ziprecruiter.com/TNW. ZipRecruiter, the smartest way to hire.
All right. The pandemic that we've been all trying to live through here for the past however many months now has changed how we use the web in a myriad of ways, particularly as we spend more time at home as we have, and in many cases surrounded online with just like the weighted heavy news that we feel. It feels kind of inescapable at times. Social media has seen some transformation as well. And we're going to talk a little bit about that right now with Abrar Al-Heeti from CNET, who wrote about how TikTok has become a beacon, I would say, of authenticity and just positive energy. And I love talking about positive energy. Welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. It's great to get you on today. Thank you. So I will fully admit, I pop into TikTok from time to time, and very often when I do, I find something to kind of laugh at. But I don't spend a whole lot of time there. And I think after reading your article, I was almost kind of convinced at the end of it that I need to, only because where I do spend a lot of my time is Twitter, and I don't end up like closing my phone at the end of a Twitter session feeling like really good and positive necessarily all the time. So thank you for that. At least it's an eye-opening experience for me. What kind of trends are you seeing? Like it sounds like you're kind of keeping close to what's going on at TikTok right now, and you're certainly seeing some trends emerging. What is emerging out of this kind of moment that we're in on TikTok?
Yeah. Unlike you, I spend too much time on TikTok. But as you mentioned, it really does kind of, it's one of those platforms where you open it up and you see people who are, just posting about either crazy things that their family's doing, candid moments, things that they're embarrassed by, and are just, looking for other people to laugh with. And since the pandemic has started, it's really kind of been interesting to see the kinds of things that people post because, when the world was not falling apart, we would post our vacations on Instagram and our hangouts with our friends. And then all of a sudden it's like, those things are out of the question. And so when people are stuck at home and they have their families and their pets and their cats doing funny things, and they just want to post short clips of kind of their everyday lives, you do see really interesting content that emerges from that. And, especially at the beginning of the pandemic, people kind of complaining and venting about the realities of lockdown and poking fun at states that aren't taking it seriously. And there are lots of Florida jokes. Like it's just, it's been interesting to see it kind of evolve as the pandemic goes forth. And it, and so the content becomes not just about coronavirus, but it becomes about, it extends to how we live our lives now and even things that don't necessarily have to touch on this major shift that we're living through. Yeah.
Now you mentioned this and you write about kind of a pushback of the usual trends, the influencer kind of thing that we've been seeing for a number of years now. Check out how amazing my life is, and things are just so great. Everything's so great for me. I mean, it's really kind of hard to project that out in the world in this moment in time, because there are a lot of things, even if life at home is great, it's still life stuck at home. And so how great can you really make that seem? What makes TikTok kind of like the right platform for this? Because I don't know that I'm seeing as much of that on platforms like Twitter, maybe some of that on Instagram. But why is TikTok the better platform for that?
Yeah, it's really interesting because I think, the fact that Instagram is a platform where it's kind of designed for you to create this ideal image of your life. You have filters, you have the ability to kind of polish your image to the degree that everything looks ideal and perfect. And TikTok, there are beauty filters on TikTok. And there are a lot of creators who will put on, perfect makeup before they post any videos, but that's not the appeal of it. You don't share a video on TikTok because, for the most part, you don't share a video on TikTok because you think, oh, this is like, look at this aesthetic, look at this super beautiful thing that I saw. You share it because it's funny. You share it because it's something embarrassing that you saw. You share it because it's something you relate to. It's essentially like this living meme. And so when you take away kind of that aesthetic value, and it doesn't necessarily become as important as it is on other platforms, you create room for more creativity and more authenticity and more space for people to kind of feel safe to post content. There are going to be trolls on all platforms, but I have noticed on TikTok, it's largely a very supportive kind community. People will be super, super nice in the comments section and support each other. And if someone's ever rude, a ton of people will go in and shut them down. So it's really created a very interesting space for people to just kind of be more authentic.
Do you worry that might change at some point? Like I think back to, I keep coming back to Twitter, but this was literally a realization I had like a week ago where I was like, man, it wasn't very long ago that like the most, the craziest thing that people were all talking about on Twitter was that it was Talk Like a Pirate Day. And, and at that point, that really seemed largely like a definition of Twitter, that, or you're telling people what you're eating for lunch, or, that sort of thing. But it's evolved and it's changed dramatically over time. And now it's become, in many ways, kind of, for better or for worse, kind of a tool for government and politics to hinge around. Whoever saw that coming? Do you envision that TikTok might at some time kind of encounter a similar kind of transition away from the funny and towards some of these other directions?
That is kind of the scary reality. As platforms change, you do kind of see, the users really shape what you see on the platforms. And so there is a very real chance that could be the case. I think because it's still a new platform, because it's still largely dominated by younger users, we're still seeing mostly positive content. But I do think as you kind of get more people to join a platform like this, there's, a higher chance that people will come in and kind of ruin what's so great about it. And that's just kind of a very real side effect. And so it'll be interesting to see as, people from different demographics join, different age groups, how that will all kind of change, because then you'll have differing ideas. Have the classic like bickering on social media, which will just be so interesting to see.
Yeah, indeed. And I mean, as far as platforms changing and everything, then you've got the kind of, we'll put them in air quotes, legacy platforms, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram. And I don't know, like, I wonder if there's a time or there's a reason or a place where suddenly those kind of transition into this direction. I mean, I don't know if that's likely, though, to happen. I feel like at this point, social media networks, they plot their place. And at this point, some of those legacies have kind of instilled, in the people that use them exactly what it's good for, and changing the ship and going towards kind of the lighthearted approach that you're getting on TikTok might not be as possible for these larger ones that have been around for much longer. Which brings me to kind of my next thought. My next question is, when I think of TikTok, yeah, sure. I'm sure I look through it with my own lens, which is like, okay, TikTok, skews, I would say, younger, and so maybe that's why I don't end up using it. Maybe I'm just too old. But why is that when it's a platform that is all about positivity mostly, and humor and everything? Everybody can benefit from that. Why do you think TikTok attracts such a younger user base? Why can't older people enjoy it, or why don't they?
I think that really does kind of stem back. It traces back to what you just said in terms of, you see it as a platform for younger people, and so do so many other people. And so because it's created this, there's this notion of it's for, just Gen Zs and like maybe millennials who are willing to dip into that. I think that kind of feeds into itself. And so people think I'm not really going to get involved in that. I'm too old for this. But I can tell you that my sister is in her late 30s. And like the second I had her look over my shoulder as I scrolled through my TikTok, she was like instantly sold and downloaded it. So I think once you kind of get over that, that helps. But also, it also traces back to the fact that, it started off as before it merged with Musical.ly, it really did kind of start off as this platform where younger people would mostly convene to do lip syncing videos and dances. And so when that becomes the reputation of that platform, and it's really hard to shake off that reputation, then people have a hard time kind of understanding it as something more than that. But the company been aggressively pushing this idea of we're not just a platform for people to lip sync and post dances. This is kind of the content reaches beyond that as well.
Okay, my question for you is this. Either what is the TikTok video that you can remember making you laugh the hardest, or if that is kind of hard to remember, what is the first TikTok video you saw that made you go, you know what? I need to come back to this app. I need to open this app again at some point. So yeah, whether it sparked your interest in returning to the app or the video that made you laugh hardest, even if you're paraphrasing, I'd love to know.
Absolutely. That's a fun question. I have so many favorite videos and I love that you can kind of save them. But I'll answer the other part of that question because I can't recall my favorite off the top of my head. But one of the things I love about TikTok is, the subcultures and little communities that are formed, and that's across all social media platforms. There's a really funny section of TikTok that's like Muslim TikTok and Arab TikTok. And so there was this video that somebody sent related to, it was something related to like prayers and just people being dramatic about it and the struggles. Mm-hmm. And so it was something that I could relate to personally, and it was just funny and blunt. And so I was like, okay, maybe this is something I need to be on. It's super unfiltered. It's super relatable. And so once I found that section of TikTok, I was like, okay, this is what's going to keep me in. And then I kind of became exposed to kind of the general stuff that was being posted on there. But I love the little communities that form within the app.
Oh, I love that. So I can remember scrolling through TikTok and just thinking, there's so many, I will just sit here and laugh at all of these. And I'm sending them to friends and family and just going through. But there was a series of videos that just, drove home the uniqueness of the platform. And it was a guy who was showing everybody how to make the perfect chai. And then afterwards, people would make chai and he would sort of watch, I don't know what it's, a duet. He would watch them make chai and sort of comment on it. And it was all just so delightful and upbeat and positive. And that there, I don't know how long, I think I spent 4 hours just watching all of these videos because it was just delightful. And just the other day, my partner and I were sitting on the couch, and I at first was watching them, and then he sort of heard one and chuckled a little bit. And so then I sort of turned the phone over, and we're both just scrolling through and getting so much joy. And I don't think joy has an age. And so in that way, I think that folks out there who maybe think that the platform's not for them, give it a go one time. Just give it a scroll through. And, I think that you don't have to necessarily contribute to TikTok to get joy and some level of positivity out of the platform. And I'm curious if you found that as well.
I absolutely agree with that. Actually, a lot of my friends download the app and never actually create an account. They just scroll through it. And so they can't necessarily like or comment anything or post anything, but they are still able to see the videos, which is enough for them. And even for me, I downloaded TikTok in January and then didn't start posting videos until the pandemic, like a lot of other people. And so I think it's so true that you'll see, it'll take once the algorithm gets you, it gets you. It's kind of scary.
That's the power of the algorithm, right? For better or for worse. And it sounds like TikTok is dialing this in for the better. So, and we didn't even get to, kind of the other aspects of TikTok that we've been, definitely talking about on the show with the Trump administration and everything like that. This is outside of that. This is just, I love when I come across a story. And a previous host of this show, Megan Maroney, is actually the one that brought this to my attention. I don't know about you, Mikah, at the same time, but I love coming across a story that puts a smile on my face, especially right now. So really appreciate you taking the time to join us today. Abrar Al-Heeti from cnet.com. If people want to follow you online, where can they do so?
Go ahead and follow me on Twitter. I'm at it's my last name and then _3. If you want to see me embarrass myself, find me on TikTok under my name. It'll be great.
Right on. Excellent. We'll have to look for you there. Thank you so much for hopping on today. We appreciate talking with you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
All right. Talk to you soon. All right. Coming up, an iOS developer that made bank on custom icon sets. Yeah, you can do that. But first, this episode of Tech News Weekly is brought to you by CacheFly. CacheFly is a CDN that has been innovating content delivery since 1999. And we've actually been using them for 10 years, more than 10 years now. So do your current S3 bills have you ready to call for help? We'll let CacheFly's SOS be the answer to your SOS. CacheFly's storage optimization system is a dedicated storage space for only you. And here's how it can help. SOS allows you to keep your data and content closer to your customers without your neighbors or your competitors' traffic reducing your customers' experience. So everybody gets top experience there. You're going to save thousands per month by shielding your origin. They guarantee no cache misses, so your download speeds will be drastically improved and your data transfer out fees will be significantly reduced. With CacheFly's SOS, you're going to get a 100% cache hit ratio. Once you're a CacheFly customer, you just decide how much storage that you need, and they will take care of the rest. CacheFly is rapidly expanding and adding new POPs globally with 6 new POPs in South America. They are serving 10 times the amount of traffic in Latin America over last year. They've not only maintained but drastically improved their performance in the region while taking on a much higher traffic load in the process. Whether your end users are in North America, LATAM, the Caribbean, EMEA, or APAC, their goal is to deliver content quickly and reliably, even in those hard-to-reach regions. Now, you can expect consistency and performance in the Americas or anywhere else because of their reliable throughput and scalability. They're up to 5 times faster than other CDNs. Now, SOS is backed by CacheFly's 100% uptime SLA guarantee and its industry-leading global performance. SOS easily and reliably improves video streaming, podcast platforms, and digital downloads, and will scale to the global audience of any size. Files are going to be delivered lightning fast. Content will be delivered quickly and reliably without delay or timeouts. CacheFly is capable of handling all kinds of traffic surges, and that's going to make sure that your content is delivered with ease no matter what. They ensure that cache misses are delivered 5 times faster than from your origins for software delivery, and games will be downloaded hyperfast with low latency and a scalable solution. CacheFly also wants to help others in need and has partnered with World Central Kitchen. They've donated over $50,000 and have a goal of serving 300,000 warm meals to those who are struggling. With standard powerful throughput, low latency, high cache hit ratio, and 100% uptime SLA, CacheFly is your go-to. Let CacheFly's SOS be your SOS. Just for TWiT listeners, CacheFly is giving away a complimentary detailed analysis of your current CDN bill and usage trends. See if you're overpaying 20% or more for CDN. You can learn more at twit.cachefly.com. That's twit.cachefly.com. We thank CacheFly for their support and for more than 10 years of service with us. We do appreciate you, CacheFly.
Thank you, CacheFly. All right, folks, everybody's making their iOS home screen aesthetic AF, or as some of the older folks seem to say, aesthetic as AF, which is a bit like saying ATM machine, but it's fine. You're catching up. You'll get there eventually. And with that comes the potential for possibility, as it were.
Yes.
I came across a really interesting article at tr.af. That's not tr as AF. It is tr.af. And this is a designer who realized that it would be a good idea to make his app icons available for purchase after a long period of time of sort of not having them available for purchase. So let me kind of explain. It starts with this. There is a not insignificant community of jailbreakers who would take their iOS devices and get into the code in such a way that they could make customizations that you normally couldn't make on an iPhone. And with that, you could change the icons on your iPhone. You could, make adjustments to the wallpaper in ways that you normally can't, et cetera, et cetera. But that is a largely discouraged practice due to the security concerns. And it is not the case that the folks who figure out jailbreaking are able to actually jailbreak the most recent versions of iOS. So you'd have to be running an older version in some cases, older devices, hardware devices, et cetera. At that time, this designer made available some app icons for the jailbreaking community and made, let me see, I think it was like $17 on these icons. And the designer was super happy with that, honestly, because it was just the idea that they could create some icons, publish them, and then make money on them, even though they're kind of just doing it for themselves. So with this new ability, without having to jailbreak your device, to be able to customize your icons, the designer thought, you know what, I'm going to put my icons back out there. So they put out a tweet with some different icons that were available using Gumroad, which is a site where artists can share. It's a little bit like Etsy, but more for digital content in many ways. There is some actual physical content, but more digital content. Just artists can sell their work in a really nicely designed website. They also used Notion, which is a tool that Leo Laporte and I use for iOS Today for planning our shows, and he and I both use for a bunch of custom stuff, and an app, a service called Super, which is a way to take a Notion page that's online and turn it into a custom website. So with those three tools and about 2 hours, this designer put up their icons. Those were then shared on Cult of Mac, on iMore, on All Things Tech, and some other sites. And that got people going and downloading those icons. And then MKBHD, the YouTube person, shared a video using the icons that this designer had created in the video with an aesthetic AF home screen. And as of the time of this post being sent out, the designer has made $116,147. More than $100,000 on an icon pack. And I think that's incredible. Designers, so back in my day, back when I was in high school, I did some freelance graphic design work on the side. And, when you do graphic design as a gig, you are more in tune with the graphic design community and sort of fall in with the memes and things like that. Can you make the logo bigger? But with that comes a certain understanding of the undervaluing of the work that you do. And the idea that you can create it, in a short period of time, that means that it's not worth a certain amount of money. And so they're routinely underpaid for the incredible work that they do. And so seeing this it just makes me feel good, because many sort of like logo design contests and things like that, where companies get work done for free instead of actually paying an artist to do it. And in this case, where the person had made $17 and they were happy with that, but to actually make more than $100,000 on this work is so cool. So anybody out there who is an artist who's making digital work, please do go check out this article, because it's not just about I made $100,000, but it's also talking about what being a digital designer, what it takes. And so there's some advice in here about publishing often, about being transparent, about charging more for your work. Yes, absolutely. And all of the kind of stuff that this artist has gone through. So give this a read. It's so well worth it. And I celebrate this artist for the work that they did, and for, frankly, the money that they made from doing this work. I think it's a really cool story.
I love articles like this. I love seeing how, some people just find themselves in the best situation possible, right? And it's like, after all this work, they finally kind of find the success that maybe they were looking for, or whatever. And yes, sometimes it takes someone like MKPHD to include it in their video for that to happen. But I think overall, what I appreciate about reading through this is like just when creativity, when a dedication to your own personal creativity finally pays off, and just kind of sharing that experience, because a lot of people would say, oh, that's my secret sauce, I need to hold on to it. This really is an article that kind of shares the joy of that experience, what it's like to suddenly wake up the next day and realize this work that you did years ago just made you $100,000. So bravo to you. But also that other people can truly learn from these points, and maybe find themselves in a similar situation at some point, or really just use this as a guide to create for the passion of creating, and everything else can follow. If it's going to, it'll happen. So I think it's a cool story. Love it. Let's see here. What is my story of the week? My story of the week. Oh, okay. It's not really a story of the week. It's a song of the week. This time, and we can keep it short because we can't really play the song, because it could possibly remove us. We might play the very, very top of it, but it's Weird Al Yankovic, and we're all doomed. That's all you get. So basically, this is a collaboration of Weird Al Yankovic along with the Gregory Brothers, and the Gregory Brothers, if you know or don't know, I would say probably like a good 8 years ago, they were doing all sorts of auto-tuned kind of remixes on YouTube, or original songs that were just all auto-tuned like crazy, and just so great. They're taking like real moments. In this case, they're taking the presidential debate from literally 2 days ago and auto-tuning it up, interspersed with Weird Al kind of singing his brilliance over the top of it. And it's called We're All Doomed, if that clip that John played doesn't give you any indication. You can find it on YouTube. Weird Al essentially takes the place of Chris Wallace in the presidential debate, and it put a smile on my face. At the same time, it's kind of like a great kind of as much as it put a smile on my face, it also just reminded me of how crazy this moment in time really is and continues to be. He had the lyrics, if the Supreme Court is really supreme, where's the guac, ground beef, and sour cream? And I don't know, that just made me laugh.
That is really a great line.
It's such a great line. So, I've always appreciated Weird Al. I don't listen to his music like all the time. Every once in a while, I might put it on when I want to put a smile on my face. I love that he's still going strong. And in fact, it's not that like he's just hanging in there. Like, he's still so great. Like, he is so awesome. He's a national treasure as far as I'm concerned. And I just love that he was able, that he and the Gregory Brothers were able to turn this around in not even 48 hours. And it's actually just like a really well done song. And so you should definitely check it out. If it's not on your radar, now it is. Go to YouTube and do a search for We're All Doomed, and escape this reality for 3 minutes. I think you'll enjoy it.
Please do. Oh, brilliant.
So there you go. All right. We've reached the end of Tech News Weekly for this week anyways. It's not the end of the show. We'll be back next week, as we always are, every Thursday. twit.tv/TNW is where you can go to subscribe so you don't miss it. When we post a new episode, you'll get it in audio or video formats. Just subscribe there or on YouTube. And you'll see us every single week.
And you can, of course, follow us on social media. We are at TWiT on Twitter, at TWiT Talk on TikTok. Yes, that's right. At twit.tv on Instagram, and I am at Mikah Sargent on pretty much all of the social media platforms, including TikTok, where I don't post anything, but I certainly lurk and laugh. If you would like to check out my other show, Hands on iOS, this week I am covering all of the new features added to the Messages app in iOS 14. So I'm doing a whole iOS 14 series, kind of going over those big features and maybe some that you may have missed so that you know what all is new and awesome about iOS 14. What about you, Jason?
Love it. That's smart. I'm at Jason Howell on Twitter. Hands on Android is a show that you can check out, twit.tv/HOA. New episode just published right before this show, actually. Thank you, John, for turning that around. I focus on the Galaxy Z Fold 2, Samsung's foldable device that I have in my hands, and I'm going to be reviewing here in a couple of weeks for Hands on Tech. And I just took some time to kind of take a look at some of the key features, what sets this device apart, how you find some options that kind of open up the functionality and flexibility of the Z Fold 2. And yeah, it's worth checking out, twit.tv/HOA. Big thanks to John at the studio for producing behind the scenes. Thank you to Burke also for helping out. And thanks to you for watching and listening each and every week. We'll see you next time on Tech News Weekly. Bye, everybody.
Goodbye, friends.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? I am Ant Pruitt, host at TWiT TV. Got a question for you. Have you gotten tired of how bad your photos are looking every time you post them to Instagram? Better yet, have you gotten yourself a new camera and you can't quite figure out why the images just don't look that good? Well, I have a solution for you. It's my show, Hands on Photography. Each and every Thursday, I sit down and share different tips and tricks that are going to help make you a better photographer and a better post processor. So subscribe today at twit.tv/hop to learn more.